All right, so let's go into specifics about this. There's a date that we just mentioned that should be of some type of significance to the FBI investigation. July 1st, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse brought this up after the hearing was over, okay, as evidence or reasoning why an investigation is still needed. Right, let's see what he had to say.
I believe Dr. Ford. I may be wrong, but I believed her. And I believe Kavanaugh dodged and dissembled, ranted and raved, filibustered and prevaricated. I did not find him credible.
At all.
I don't believe his flatulence. I don't believe the Devil's Triangle is a drinking game. And I don't believe calling yourself a girl's alumnus. No cross-examination. Here's Kavanaugh's calendar. Dr. Ford said that Kavanaugh and Judge and PJ and at least one other boy were all at a house. Well, we know Bart Kavanaugh was there.
He means Brett Kavanaugh.
Schedule. And here's Judge, and here's PJ. Here are all those three named boys and others at a house together, just as she said. She said Kavanaugh and Judge were drunk, and that she had a beer. Skis is brewskis. Beer. They were drinking, just as she said. Now, I will concede that the two girls aren't mentioned. But spot me this. If you had just sexually assaulted one of the two girls, would you add the girls' names to your calendar?
That's a crazy question right there. That's a crazy question. That was a crazy way to put that question. But the point is still valid. She didn't know he had this calendar. People said, where's the evidence? The evidence is right there in Sheldon Whitehouse's hand. She didn't know he had that calendar. He just proved her case for it right there. How the hell would she know? He said he never met her before. So how would she know that he was at a party? Well, not a party. He was at a house in the summer of 1982 with Mark Judge and PJ and a couple other people drinking beer. Why would she have remembered that from 30 years ago? Why would that be significant to her? Why would she have known that they were at a house 30 years ago and then bring it up now? She didn't bring it up back then. She thought about that for 30-something years. For 36 years, she thought about them being at a house drunk. Why? Evidently, something happened to her that would make her remember that. What of possible significance could have happened to her? Everybody else that was there forgot about that day. They was either drunk or didn't care about it. It was an insignificant day. Everybody else forgot about that. They don't even remember that day even happened. But luckily he kept his calendar though. Because he just showed that he was there doing what she said was going on, at least part of it. They were drinking. She remembers that part. He don't remember none of the other shit. She remembers all the rest. She remembers a lot more than everybody else does. Let's put it like that. Because maybe a traumatic experience happened to her at that time. Like she said.
The event described by Dr. Ford presumably happened on a weekend because I believe everyone worked.
Nobody said it happened on the weekend. Who said it happened on the weekend? Nobody even knew the day or the date or anything. No, he's throwing out false evidence right now. He said, we're presuming that it happened on the weekend. No. You're saying that to try to get over. You're saying that to try to make an excuse for yourself, which is, unless you're dumb, unless you're easily misled, unless you're susceptible to suckerism, you would see that that was just a tactic that he's using. No one said that it was a weekend. He just said that. He made that up.
On a weekend, because I believe everyone worked and had jobs in the summers. If the party described by Dr. Ford happened in the summer of 1982 on a weekend night, my calendar shows all but definitively that
This is such a weak way to try to prove your case. He said, if we're saying it happened on a weekend, then my calendar clearly shows that I wasn't around on the weekend. Nobody said it happened on the weekend except you. Weak ass motherfucker.
I was not there.
That Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh
Weak
insisted
ass
that the
motherfucker.
incident Christine Blasey Ford would have been on a weekend, that incident she describes. But take a look at the judge's calendar, at July in particular. On July the 1st, it reads, go to Timmy's for skis with Judge Tom P.J. Burney ski. It is safe to assume, in light of what we learned this week, FBI agents are going to spend some time looking at that day in particular. My panel is back with me, and I want to turn to Joyce Vance, who's down in Texas first. Joyce, to what degree do you think this is going to be the focus of this investigation? You saw during the course of these hearings when the Republican senators were still using Rachel Mitchell, still using this outside prosecutor to ask questions, and she was honing in on that date. She was getting very close to it, and I noted that when she got there, that's when her service to the committee seemed to end. Republicans stopped. Your sense, Joyce, of the importance of that date?
Yeah. So when Rachel Mitchell started asking that question, like we showed you earlier, the Republicans cut in. I think that's when Lindsey Graham did his whole 2 cents, his whole hysterical rant, which we might have to get into, because when you hear the word sneer, it's such an archaic word, sneering. The motherfucker sneered at me. Like, niggas don't really sneer. You know what I mean? Like, who does that? Motherfucking Lindsey Graham. That's who be sneering and shit. That nigga was actually sneering. Like, sneering is what that motherfucker was doing. We'll have to look at it, and I'll show you what sneering is. But most people don't do it, and they've heard that word, but you don't usually get to see it in action, like in real life action. A motherfucker sneering at you and shit. That's what he was doing and shit. But yeah, this date is going to be very important. That's the only thing they should be concentrating on besides getting that fucking polygraph, in my opinion. That date, or a date like that. Find any other dates that look like that. If that was the only one, I didn't look at the calendar. But that was the only one, so be it. They need to find out where that house was that they went to and what's the blueprint of it, and let's take it from there. Let's see what Joyce Vance is saying.
That did seem to be the cutoff point for Rachel Mitchell. She sort of got the hook from the committee after she began to focus on Judge Kavanaugh's calendar. And it seems fair to focus on his calendar because he has held them out to be reliable. I think that what we'll ultimately see is that reference to ski on July 1st is a reference to brewskis, and the judge has acknowledged his love of beer.
Yeah.
So this seems like a great place for the FBI to begin its inquiry, identifying all of the participants, looking at the likely location, seeing whether it's a match with Dr. Ford's story. They'll be able to drive her to the location if they can identify it, and engage in all sorts of techniques designed to determine whether or not this could be the date that Dr. Ford is referring to in her testimony.
And Joyce and I weren't the only ones here. Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator from Rhode Island, was honing in on this as well. Let's play a little bit of tape of him talking about that date in particular.
Kavanaugh himself put forth, along with an explanation that these parties took place on weekends. I guess you could call July 1st a pre-kend day, because it entered into a holiday, but it is a Thursday, and there it is in full display, and I'm sure the FBI will take full advantage of the material, not just friends, doctor's appointments. I think it's all open for them to look at.
Katie, there was a moment when this comes up in the hearing.
Oh, damn. He just even made it worse by saying that weekend bullshit. Wait a minute. He just made it worse by saying that weekend shit. So, you see what happened? He said we wouldn't have been having no drinking. We wouldn't have been drinking unless it was the weekend. Well, what I forgot was July 4th is a holiday. And that year, July 4th fell on a Sunday. So either July 4th was celebrated on Monday or maybe even Friday. So if Friday was like the weekend, if, everybody was going to celebrate July 4th, like that people have off of work maybe or something like that, Thursday night would have been like Friday, which is the weekend. So he just made it even worse. Thursday of that particular week, of that particular month, was like a weekend because it was July 4th weekend. It was an extended weekend probably. So now we got to find out if people had off on Friday. And if they did, he's go check his work schedule now. Go check his work schedule for that Thursday and see where he's supposed to be at on Friday.
The judge is talking about this calendar. He's talking about how he used it. He used it to write down what was going to happen. He used it as a diary as well, cramming stuff into these 1 inch by 1 inch squares about what happened in his life. But
he drinks a lot, and he should just own it. I mean, and I'm not trying to be, blasé. Maybe he does have an alcoholism problem. I don't know. But the fact that he is chipped away in terms of his credibility on the smaller things, it's one thing to just blanket deny, I did not assault Dr. Christine Ford. That's one thing. But when you sit there and you kind of progressively keep on denying and lying about things that we all know is true. And again, this is the Supreme Court justice that we're looking at. That was a job interview. And you know what? Even if the Senate Republicans wanted to just ram this through, it does chip away at his credibility. And so if you look at these calendar entries, you're going to start asking yourself, well, who's Suzanne and who's Nikki and why did he go to the doctor? And then
there's so many things that by themselves without the sexual assault allegations should disqualify him. There's probably 4 or 5 different areas without the sexual assault that should disqualify him. Admittedly, 3 or 4 of them probably have to do with perjury, but perjury about different things. All of those individual perjurous statements should disqualify him. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned.